Welcome to Beyond the Pillion podcast. My name is Kahiwa, Sebire, she, her pronouns, and I am the chaotic one.
And my name is Mark Drechsler, he, him pronouns, and I'm the one who's reached an age where he really appreciates heated grips.
Welcome to episode 1 of Beyond the Pillion podcast. Today we're going to be talking a bit about what this podcast is, who it's for, and who we are. But stick around for a tip about getting the first bike right.
And before we start today, though, we do just want to acknowledge that we are recording this podcast on the traditional lands of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains, and to pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging.
Absolutely. But this is a podcast really for women, for non-binary people looking to get into motorcycling, or maybe you started recently. And maybe you don't have a group of experienced riders in your orbit that you can ask questions about, get some help with. Well, we will be those friends for you. We want to help give you advice, be a sounding board, in a way that understands the context of women and non-binary people coming to motorcycles. We want to help cut through some of the noise of online forums and a whole bunch of other content out there. So really, this is a place where we will be having conversations. We'll have some tips and tricks and interviews with other people. But first, maybe we should introduce ourselves. Mark, what do you think?
Sounds like a good place to start at the beginning. So riding history. I think my riding history started about 30 years ago, I guess, as a university student who was looking to get into motorbikes for two reasons. One of them was to have a cheap form of transport, and the second one, of course, was to look cool in amongst all of the other university students and the share house that I was living in, where everybody owned motorbikes. Throughout that time, so I've had 10 years at the beginning, then took about 12 years off riding, had a long break in there, then got back into it when I was in my 40s, and have owned, I would be guessing, 20-something bikes, of which I still own a small collection, as you hear Kahiwa laughing about how many motorbikes I still have. As well as my riding history, so that's been the fun part of my life. My career, which of course has had fun moments, let's not take away from my career. Right now I work in a motorbike shop, which is fantastic. I work in the sales team of a dealership in South Australia, which is fantastic. It's like going into a giant toy shop every morning. Before that, I worked in a variety of senior roles in education administration, a little bit in technology. So, did a whole bunch of stuff where there was quite a lot of complexity, quite a lot of very interesting problems to try and solve. And I found that quite a lot of those end up transferring across into my role now working in the motorcycling industry. Why did I want to do this in the podcast, do this podcast in the first place? I think for a while now, I've been very keen on just trying to help just help people in general get into motorcycling, but particularly helping more women get on two wheels. And I've seen quite a few that have come in through the doors of the dealership with very little idea about what they want, other than a broad idea that, they want to ride a motorcycle. I'll give a quick shout out to Kylie, because I promised that I would, as one of the people who inspired this, who is a lady who is fairly early in her motorcycling journey, but was one of those people who really did walk into the shop saying pretty much what I said just then, that she knew she wanted to ride a motorbike, but in terms of how to get to that much longer term goal, really didn't know a huge amount. And for me at that point, it was a bit of an eye-opener, thinking, wow, okay, I have done a fair bit around motorcycling. I was also a motorcycling instructor for RiderSafe here in South Australia, which is the government agency that you need to go through to get your motorcycle riding license. You need to go and do a 2-day course to get your learners. And I was one of the instructors, which I did about 20 odd years ago for for a couple of years, which was fantastic. So I've always enjoyed helping people learn about riding bikes, buying bikes, maintaining bikes, and just getting into the world of motorcycling. Kahiwa?
Yes. Me.
You.
Who am I?
Tell us about your riding history. Tell us about your career. Why should people listen? Why should people listen to you, and why should people listen to us?
That is a fantastic question. I am probably about 5 years, just a little under 5 years into my riding experience at the moment. But my earliest memory of riding a motorbike was when I was about 6 or 7, turning up to school on the back of my dad's bike and getting off, taking the helmet, swishing the hair and feeling so unbelievably cool. And then didn't really touch a bike until, Mark, you started getting back into riding again. Went on the back a couple of times as a Pillion passenger and decided, actually, I really like this. I think I'd quite like to be the one in charge, the one in front, but feeling actually quite scared about that, and having that vision for myself as a badass motorcycle chick, but feeling quite intimidated by the motorcycling world. We've watched a lot of YouTube videos and similar in forums, and the advice, the underlying assumptions and presumptions about why you ride and the type of riding you want to do didn't really resonate with me. So over the last few years, been having conversations, you and me, around what is it like to actually get into riding, and I think you noticing some differences there about women and non-binary people and non-cis men coming into motorcycling and it being a slightly different experience. And so, for me, it's been really exciting to build up my skills and my confidence. And the podcast, this idea became an opportunity to share our conversations that we've had, and conversations you've had with other people, a bit more broadly, seeing that other people might be interested as well.
Absolutely.
And for me, equity is actually a really important value for me. And one of the things that we know is, motorcycling manufacturers and accessory producers and companies are operating under capitalism, and they will make things for the largest cohort of their perceived audience, which at the moment is your middle-aged cis man. And the only way that's going to change is if we have more women and non-binary people riding. So if we can be helping to make that happen, to address some of the very real and understandable fears and barriers, to help get people into riding and stay riding, then that's going to make for a more equitable and I think enjoyable experience for everybody.
Absolutely. And I think that probably, well, actually, no, it doesn't, because you haven't told us about your career and how that hooks into...
Yes, sorry, you talked a little bit about
being
a rider-safe instructor and a few other things. And
tell us about your day job.
My day job, I work as a consultant doing research and evaluation, which is really about answering the question, what does good look like? How will we know it when we get there? How close are we to whatever good is? And I also do some work in and around learning and technology and helping people design experiences that are going to give students the best opportunity to learn the things that we want them to or that they might need to. But for me, that evaluation experience means we spend a lot of time talking about good. So there aren't a lot of really clear-cut things about right or wrong or good or bad. And that's something that you're going to hear in this podcast. We are unlikely to be giving you really hard and fast, you must do this, you have to do that. Instead, we'll be talking a little bit more broadly about, if what you're wanting to look for is blah, if you want to achieve blah, then something else is actually going to be really helpful for you. And that's something, Mark, that you've really found in your day job as well?
Yes, absolutely. I think picking up on that whole right versus wrong, black versus white, one of the things that has struck me in motorcycling, and the longer I've been in it, the more I've kind of realised it, is that there very rarely is a perfect answer to anything. And I think that's probably the word of caution around some of the online forums that I see, where you pose a question into a forum. Anybody that rides motorcycle is highly likely to have an opinion on a matter. Some of them are very strong, and some of them are very concrete. What is the best bike? What is the best gear? What is the right way to learn? You will get plenty of responses that are, yep, this is the one right way to do it, and this is the only way, or this is the only path that you should follow, and any other path you follow is going to not be right. And of course, that's garbage. So what we'll try and do here is to Kahiwa's experience as an evaluator, which really is focusing on not necessarily the best or the right, but what is good
for you. Good in context, and
absolutely right.
You as an individual person, every single rider will have different things that they're wanting to achieve, different goals, different body physical constraints that they're working with, that there is no one right perfect bike, anything really, but in this context, definitely no one right bike.
And I would say that if there is one takeaway that you do take away from this, and I'm talking to the people who are either just thinking about getting into motorcycling, or who are very, very early in their journey through into motorcycling, is that don't worry if you are looking at a scenario of trying to make a decision about a particular, whether it's a bike, or whether it's gear, or whether it's a riding style, or whether it's anything else really, that you're just looking at a sea of information and you're really just confused and terrified and intimidated, as Kay was said. Don't worry about it. That is perfectly normal. Learning about motorcycling is an iterative process. The right answer, as Kahiwa said, context is everything, and time is included in that. That the decisions that you make now about the path that you want to take, we will try and help you at least have enough information to have some guidance around the decisions you make. But make the decision. Don't fret too much over a lot of these decisions, because hopefully, if you do a bit of thinking, a bit of research, you will get most of the decisions at least good. But don't get hung up and into thinking that you have to make the absolute perfect decision every time right from the outset, and that the only way to do that is by knowing everything there is to know about motorcycling. It doesn't work that way. I've been riding bikes for 15 years, even if it's been in 2 bursts, and I'm still learning things, maybe not every day, but certainly every week I'm learning new stuff that makes me think, oh, wow, okay, I didn't realise that. Sound fair?
Yeah, I think so. I think for me, the learning curve has really mapped alongside the bikes that I've owned. Mm-hmm. Thinking about the right first bike, the first bike that I went to go and take on a test ride after getting my learner's permit was a Yamaha MT-03. Which we thought, it's good, it's got a bit of power, it's a pretty decent kind of seating position. Took it round back corners of one of the local retailers and promptly dropped it, trying to get on a corner, because I had completely forgotten about gears and all sorts of other things, freaking out being on the road. And then we had a conversation and worked out that actually a really good first bike for me now, having had that experience of coming off the bike, was something that would be really non-threatening, to take away some of the fear and the intimidation, to say actually the goal, regardless of the practicalities and the specifications of the bike and all that kind of thing, the goal is something that makes me feel comfortable and want to ride enough to build my confidence. And so I ended up having a Honda CB125 for all of about 5 months?
Just long enough for you to get through your level 2 license test to get on to onto something else, but also, to be fair, for you to get enough confidence. And once you did get that confidence up, then the bike that you originally thought that we'd done through meticulous research that the MTR3 was probably the right one, did end up being you went for the R3 rather than the MTR3.
Yeah, the R3, but very similar, basically the same bike.
Which then was the right bike for you at that time.
And I had that bike for a good couple of years, actually.
3 years, 2-3 years until it got stolen, maybe?
Yeah, we'll talk about keeping your bike yours later. Yeah. But the point there being that the right bike might change as you change, as your circumstances change, as your goals for riding change. And, one of the things with having the bike change owners all without my necessary consent or intention.
It was stolen.
Was that had an opportunity to buy a bigger bike, and that coincided with living in a different area, having a different type of riding, rides that I was doing, wanted to be able to go a bit faster, living in an area where I wasn't doing as much commuting in the city. So a slightly bigger bike that's still comfortable became the bike that was right for me. So again, if you're thinking about your first bike or the right bike for you, it's that you're probably going to change. Your wants and needs from a bike and your goals for riding might change, and so therefore the right bike might change. And it's perhaps less about the specific characteristics, although for me colour is very important, but it's more about having a bike that is going to help you meet those goals.
And tying that back into the whole concept that there's rarely one right answer. There's just varying levels of goodness in the decisions that you're going to make around buying bikes, buying gear. One of the things we'll try and do is give some advice around not over-investing early on in your motorcycling journey. So because it will be the same with helmets, it will be the same with gear, it will be the same with other safety gear or bike anti-theft stuff, or a whole bunch of other different things,
which we will be talking about in upcoming episodes.
Yes, we absolutely will. But what we'll try and do is to help people think about getting into motorcycling in a fairly low cost and iterative type of way, without needing to try and solve all of the problems all at once about what you need. But doing it, if there's any agile software development people out, it is very much an iterative development model of starting off, getting the minimum viable product for you to be able to get moving on the road, and then gradually building on that. Sometimes it will include changes of motorcycle over the years, but also learning the different types of gear that you might like or might need, the different types of riding styles that you do or don't enjoy doing. And it really is, as much as I cringe at the word, it really is a journey. And for the vast majority of motorcyclists, I think once you're in, then it's a journey that doesn't really stop. It might change and morph over the years, but I think it's something where you're constantly learning, changing, developing into new and interesting things, which is one of the many reasons why it is such a fascinating community to be a part of.
Yeah, I think that is one of the big benefits of riding a motorcycle in contrast to driving a car or another kind of vehicle. Partly, you talked a little about costs there, and changing bikes. Bikes are a lot cheaper to purchase, and you're more likely to keep a lot of that value when you sell it. So there are fewer risks in terms of changing bikes semi-regularly. And the outlay of gear and other things, whilst it is relatively significant in contrast to, say, getting into a car,
jumping into a car,
it's still not that big in the grand scheme of things compared to the purchase of a car. As well as having all of the different types of riding that you can do, different types of rides. There is, I think, a broader variety of ways that you can ride a motorcycle and different things that you can get out of it. But that's kind of starting to talk about our topic for next week. So in our next episode, we'll be kind of answering some of those questions. Really, have you ever had someone told someone that you're riding or that you want to ride, and their reply was, "Oh, isn't it dangerous?" And it might have had you wondering if you actually even wanted to do this. So next week, we'll be talking about the costs, the risks, and the benefits of becoming a motorcyclist, and why, as Mark kind of alluded to, for us, the answer is yes. Yes, we do.
And the answer for a whole lot of other people is yes, and that is one of the advantages of me working in the role that I do. I get to meet a whole lot of people that have not just been riding for many, many years, and riding into later in life. I think the oldest motorcyclist that currently pops in regularly is about 84, who's still riding on a almost daily basis. We'll start to dig into some of the perceptions, some of the myths, some of the risks, and start to talk about the reality. If you are thinking that, maybe I do want to become a motorcyclist, but I'm still sort of a little bit unsure about it, we'll start tackling some of those things.
In the meantime, thank you very much for listening. This is Beyond the Pillion podcast. You can find us on YouTube and Instagram at Beyond the Pillion. Leave us a comment. Let us know what questions you want to answer. Until we see you again, ride safe and have fun.